Everyone was really bummed that telecom didn't work out. But trust me when I say no one was as bummed as I was. I felt like it was time. I felt like I was finally ready to go back to school. So the fact that it didn't work out in my favor and I didn't get to go to the school that I wanted to go to, I was pretty upset. However, I found out that my therapist, Ahuva, had been holding out on some information. Because she was scared that telecom wasn't going to work out, she had formed a backup plan. In her building around the corner was an alternative school called Thomas Askin Youth Program. And it was incredibly small. It was on one floor, and it gave classes to people who wanted to take their GED, and they also gave out high school classes. Now, when it came to the high school classes, how it would work is that you are in the school for a year, and then you graduate from the program, and then you move on to a different school. She thought it was perfect for me, so that way I can take like baby steps in a sense, where I can go to the small alternative school and then move on to a bigger school. She just wanted to see if the regular high school would work first, and if it didn't, we'd try this. I took it upon myself to draw a small little diagram, so that way you guys can get a rough idea of what the school looked like. This is just a blueprint, but you can tell that if I really wanted to get to the school, all I had to do, say this is the Jewish board where my therapy is, all I needed to do is go right around the corner to get to the school. Here's a more like 3D version of the diagram. All I would really have to do is just go right there. Then there's school. When you walk into the building, you have this little seating area, and then there's a little window right here so you can talk to people throughout the office. Over here is a lounge, and this is where people will come to hang out for break or for lunchtime. It had 2 pool tables and a ping pong table, and this is also the room where people had to go for a group, which is basically mandatory group sessions. Next door to that would be where the GED classes took place. And how it worked, there were 2 different high school classes. Say if I was in high school 1, my classes would begin in this room, which is English or history, etc. If you're high school 2, you would start your day in this room. Now, when the first class of the day is over, these 2 classrooms would switch. So high school 1 would be going into this room, and high school 2 would be going into that room. There was 1 teacher in each classroom, and these 2 teachers would do different subjects. And on occasion, we would have another teacher come in, some random person to help us do like art or some shit. Now here is where the girls' and boys' bathroom are. Right here is a little area where food was served. So whenever it was break or lunch, that's where you would go. And they sold hot food, like Hot Pockets, beef patties, pizza. You can get chips, cookies, drinks, all that shit. Now these little rooms that I have open, those would be the rooms where certain people's counselors would be. There were a lot of students who were like me, where if their therapist was at the Jewish board, they would just have to go around the corner. Other kids were lucky and got to have their therapist right in the school that they were at. In order for me to attend the school, it was mandatory that I started classes in the summer. So I had to do the summer school classes, and then I would start in September. And I have to agree with Ahuva. I feel like starting off in the alternative school and eventually making my way to a bigger school, I feel like that was the right way to go about things. Because when I started the summer classes, I'm not gonna lie, there were a couple of days where I was absent because I was starting to feel that anxiety again. And because the school knew that I had these issues, they were able to work with me, and I was still able to go to the school starting September. I started in this school very shy, kind of like a hermit crab. But with the friends that I made in the school, they helped me branch out and finally helped me become the person I used to be. And just like I did before the depression and when I was in homeschooling, I did everything that I had to do. I did my schoolwork, I did my homework, I did my assignments, I did my tests, I passed everything, and everything was Gucci. I finally felt like a functioning human being. Now, don't get me wrong, I did have a lot of problems in Thomas Askins. Unfortunately, it's a long enough story that I'd have to get into a whole different video for that. But when it comes to the school, I just want to let you know that I did graduate a year later. After that, I went to another alternative school, but it was the size of a regular high school. It was called Liberation, and from what I understood, a lot of people who went to Thomas Askins was also going to Liberation. And you know what, for a while, everything was going peachy keen. Then I started having problems in that school as well. I started that school being close to only 1 person. And because of how new it was, I was still afraid to make new friends. I started having problems with the only friend I had. So once again, I started feeling that loneliness. And it just reminded me of everything that I had to deal with in the past. And a lot of that depression and anxiety was coming back. I also felt like there were teachers in that school that were very unprofessional. I was doing fantastic in my school. I was even told by my counselor that I was this close to being valedictorian. At least that was up until my English teacher told me that they lost all my work. He put everyone's assignment into individual files, and he turned around and told me that he lost my files. He told me I would not get credit for that unless I did it again. Ooh, scenery change. Making this video a little more interesting. Anyway, yeah, so he said I'm not gonna get credit for any of the work that I did. He said the only way I can get credit for it is if I redo it. And I was fucking livid. Now you're gonna tell me that all the work that I started in the beginning of the year up until now is completely gone and it's my responsibility to redo all that work? How did that become my fault if your stupid ass lost my work? So that was the first thing that pissed me off. I basically gritted my teeth and I was like, you know what, I'll try my best to do every assignment that they lost. For some reason, I was having problems with my math teacher. And for some reason, this fucking dude had it out for me. Every single person in that room could be chewing gum, and if he saw me chewing gum,
get that motherfucking gum out of your mouth. You want motherfucking detention?
And everyone who knows me, when it comes to school, I have complete respect for my teachers. And since I'm a good student, there was no fucking reason to why this guy was treating me like this. And I had complained about this teacher numerous times to people. So everyone knew that this motherfucker hated me. One day I'm sitting in his classroom, it's almost the end of the period, everyone is sitting there on their phones listening to music, texting. I pulled out my phone for 2 seconds to check the time, and I look up and there he is.
You better fucking give it to me.
Motherfucker, everyone in the front row is on their phone. And that's exactly what I said to him. The stupid motherfucker goes,
I don't care. Give me your phone or else you're getting detention.
I couldn't hold it in anymore. I stood up from my chair and I started screaming in his face. I was like, what the fuck is your problem? You're always on my ass. Why aren't you doing this to other students? He was telling me to get the fuck out of his classroom. And thank God, the only friend I had at the time ran up to me and tried to stop me because I almost punched this guy in the face. And thank God, as soon as I was about to throw hands, the bell rang. I said, fuck this. And I was like, you know what? I'm not coming to your class no more. So eventually, after losing the one friend that I had and having problems in my classes, I started skipping. Every single day when I made my way to school, instead of going to school, I would go to the library. And I would spend all fucking day there. There were a couple of times where I did go to school and then leave through the back door, just so I can show face. But that was it. I felt like I was really trying to do good in the school, but everything inside of the school was making it harder for me. And on top of that, I was having a ton of shit going on at home. I had a ton of shit going on in my love life. So it came to a point where I just stopped caring. I dropped out of school. I no longer had friends, aside from the friends that I had outside of school. And slowly but surely, I started caring less about everything else. I even stopped going to therapy. And honestly, it breaks my heart the way I stopped going to therapy because a Hoover really cared about me. I didn't even have the common courtesy to contact her and tell her that I'm stopping therapy. My mother did. She told me that she wanted to see me one last time before I decided to call it quits, and I basically said, sorry, I'm not going. After everything that she did for me, that wasn't the right thing for me to do. At that point, I thought that maybe I can take care of everything by myself. I started hiding my personal issues. I started pretending that I didn't have them. I stopped talking about my issues. I basically just pretended that I didn't have anxiety and depression. The multiple times I tried to go to school never happened. I stopped going to school in 2010 and I finally got my GED in 2014. And I still fucking haven't done anything with it. When I got into a relationship with my boyfriend Rob, I was very happy. And because of how happy I was distracted from the fact that I have a condition. But now, as the years go by, I realize that I really should have stayed in therapy. I've dug myself into a deeper hole. Sure, I may not be cutting myself. Sure, I may not be self-medicating. But it's come to the point where I'm not leaving my house anymore. It's come to the point where all of a sudden I'm scared of the most stupidest things. And because of how bad it's gotten, I started seeking out therapy again. This Monday that just passed was my second session. It's a little early to tell, but so far I like my therapist. Her name is Amy, and I'm hoping that she's just as good as a Hoover was. And hopefully she could, little by little, help me get back to who I used to be. And that's basically it on the discussion of anxiety and depression. It's still an ongoing battle, and I'm still trying to fix it. I do plan on keeping you guys all updated. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to some of my story. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions or concerns. And please keep an eye out for the next video.